My world was my mom, a warm light in a small, messy life. Born when she and Dad were just 19, I grew up wrapped in her love, our giggles filling our tiny apartment. At 10, we were best friends, gossiping about boys, joking over burnt cookies, dancing to old pop songs in our pajamas. She'd braid my hair, whispering, "You're my everything, kiddo." I believed our bond was unbreakable, a fortress against the world. But cracks were forming, ones I was too young to see. Around my 10th birthday, Mom and Dad's fights grew louder, their voices sharp through thin walls. One night, they sat me down, their faces heavy. "We're getting a divorce," Mom said, her eyes avoiding mine. I felt the ground shift, but when they asked who I'd live with, I didn't hesitate. "Mom," I said, my heart tethered to her warmth. She hugged me tight, promising nothing would change. I clung to that promise, blind to the storm coming. A year later, Mom introduced me to Greg, her new boyfriend, a tall ex-military staff sergeant with a handshake like a vice. His smile was stiff, but Mom's eyes sparkled when he was around, a glow I'd never seen with Dad. "He's good for us," she said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, wanting her to be happy, even if Greg's presence felt like an intruder in our duo. When he became my stepdad and moved in, our apartment shrank, his heavy boots echoing like a warning. I was still the sarcastic kid, tossing playful jabs at Mom, expecting her laughter. But Greg's eyes would narrow, his jaw tight, and Mom's giggles faded. Our evenings, once filled with silly banter, turned quiet, his rules creeping in, no loud music, no late-night snacks. I'd catch Mom glancing at him, seeking his approval, her warmth dimming. I told myself it was temporary, that she'd always choose me. But the air in our home grew heavy, like a storm waiting to break. I'd lie awake, clutching my stuffed bear, wondering why her love felt distant. The bond one thought was forever was slipping, and I was too young to understand why. Everything changed one morning when Mom asked me to take last night's pizza boxes to the garage for recycling. I was 12, still the sarcastic kid who'd joke with her. "Nah, you do it," I teased, already grabbing the boxes with a grin. I hauled them to the garage, stacking them on the cardboard pile, humming a tune. Turning to head back, I bumped into Greg, who'd slipped in silently behind me. Before I could blink, his hands shot out, lifting my 12-year-old body off the ground by my throat. He slammed me against the wall, his face inches from mine, screaming about disrespect. "You think you're funny?" he roared, spit flecking my cheeks. I couldn't breathe, tears blurring my vision, my feet dangling. I clawed at his hands, biting one, scratching until he cursed and loosened his grip as Mom's footsteps echoed down the hall. He dropped me, spinning a story to her, I don't remember what, my ears were ringing. She believed him, her eyes soft for him, hard for me. I stumbled to school, collapsing in a private band room, sobbing until my chest hurt. I wanted to tell Mom, to beg her to see the truth, but her trust in Greg felt like a wall I couldn't climb. That night, I lay awake, replaying his rage, my throat still aching. I told myself it was a one-time thing, that he'd just lost his temper. But deep down, I knew it was the start of something darker. I hugged my pillow, whispering, "Mom, please see him," praying she'd notice the fear in my eyes. But her laughter with him echoed through the apartment, a sound that used to be mine. Over the next 2 years, Greg's cruelty grew, a shadow swallowing my life. He developed an obsession with Mom, but it came with a vendetta against me, like I was a threat to his control. Whenever Mom wasn't around, he'd smack me across the face for any comment he deemed disrespectful, even a playful jab at her cooking. "You don't talk to her like that," he'd hiss, his hand stinging my cheek. He'd overhear me gossiping with Mom about boys, a ritual we once loved, and corner me later, sneering, "You're too young to sell yourself out. Girls like you ruin good men." His words, laced with weird ideological venom, chilled me. It was like he saw me as an enemy, not a kid. I'd shrink into myself, terrified of his next outburst, my sarcasm buried under fear. The abuse was worst when Mom worked overnight shifts at the hospital. Greg would storm into my room, dragging me by my hair if I wasn't asleep by his curfew. He'd toss me across the floor, his voice low and menacing, "You think you're smarter than me?" I'd curl up, heart racing, praying he'd leave. He'd do hourly checks, waving his belt, threatening to beat me if he caught me on my phone. I started hiding under my bed, clutching a kitchen knife, my only defense. I couldn't sleep, my stomach knotted, knowing he was prowling. Seeing him kiss Mom's forehead in the morning, her smile so bright, made me sick. How could she love this monster? I wanted to scream, but her happiness with him silenced me. I was losing her, and I didn't know how to fight back. Greg's abuse carved holes in my world. I stopped talking at home, my voice locked away to avoid his wrath. I'd only leave my room to use the bathroom, tiptoeing past his glare. I'd starve myself, skipping meals to stay invisible, my stomach growling as I hid. I faked sickness to skip family events, dreading his fake smiles in front of others. School suffered, my grades slipped, my friends drifted, their laughter a world I couldn't reach. I started running away, crashing at friends' houses, and tried substances to numb the fear. Each escape made Greg angrier, his eyes promising punishment. I slept with a knife under my pillow, my heart pounding at every creak, convinced he'd come for me. I was 14, but felt like a prisoner in my own home. Mom saw my rebellion, not my pain. "Why can't you behave?" she'd sigh, her voice sharp with disappointment. I wanted to tell her about the slaps, the hair pulling, the threats, but Greg's charm had her blind. She'd hug him, laughing at his jokes, while I withered inside. I'd catch her looking at me, confused, like I was the problem. Her love, once my anchor, felt like a ghost. I'd lie awake, whispering, "Please, Mom, see him," but my words never reached her. Greg's grip on her tightened, and I felt like an intruder in their story. I was drowning, and the one person who could save me was too busy loving my monster. The knife under my pillow was my only friend, a cold reminder that I was alone. One night, when Mom was working late, Greg's rage exploded. I heard his boots thumping up the stairs, each step a hammer on my heart. I ran to my closet, curling up behind clothes, holding my breath, terrified he'd kill me. The door slammed open, and he growled my name, his voice dripping with hate. I stayed silent, praying he'd leave, but he tore the closet open, grabbing my hair and dragging me downstairs. He threw me onto the kitchen floor, my knees scraping tile. Before I could speak, he grabbed my cat, Muffin, who'd been my comfort through every nightmare. His hands closed around her throat, and I screamed, "No." But he didn't stop. Muffin's eyes went dull, her body limp, and I felt my world collapse. I was trembling, sure I was next, praying Mom would walk in. He tossed Muffin's body into the garbage outside, silent, his eyes cold. I lay on the floor, frozen, my mind blank with shock. When Mom came home, she found me there, trembling, tears streaking my face. Her eyes narrowed, not with concern but disappointment. "What did you do now?" she snapped, assuming I was acting out again. I couldn't speak, couldn't tell her about Muffin, about Greg's hands on my throat, his hatred. Her disbelief was a knife, cutting the last thread of our bond. I stared at her, the mom I loved, now a stranger. That night, I knew I couldn't stay. I had to escape, even if it meant losing her forever. After that night, I broke. Muffin's death and Mom's cold stare shattered what was left of me. I packed a small bag, stuffing in clothes and my favorite book, and called Dad from a payphone, my voice shaking. "Can I come live with you?" I asked. He didn't pry, just said, "Come home, kid." I left Mom's house without a word, slipping out before Greg woke. The bus ride to Dad's was a blur, my eyes fixed on the window, Muffin's lifeless body haunting me. When I reached Dad's small house, he hugged me, but I couldn't speak. I didn't tell him about Greg's hands, the knife under my pillow, or the cat I'd never hold again. I just wanted to forget. At Dad's, I was quiet, a ghost of the kid I'd been. He'd try to make me laugh, cooking pancakes, asking about school, but I'd nod and retreat to my room. The fear lingered, a weight I couldn't shake. I'd check the locks at night, scared Greg would find me. Mom called once, her voice sharp, "Why'd you leave without telling me?" I mumbled an excuse, unable to say the truth. Her silence on the other end hurt more than her words. I wanted to scream about Greg, but I knew she'd choose him. I hung up, my heart heavy, knowing our bond was gone. Dad's house was safe, but it wasn't home. I was alone, carrying a secret too big for a kid. Living with Dad, I tried to rebuild, but Greg's shadow followed me. I'd wake up gasping, dreaming of his hands on my throat, Muffin's limp body. I kept silent, scared that speaking would make it real. Dad noticed my quietness, my flinches at loud noises, but I brushed it off, saying, "Just tired." School was a haze, teachers called me distracted, friends stopped trying. I'd sit in the band room, the same place I'd sobbed at 12, staring at my clarinet, unable to play. My grades tanked, and I felt like I was failing Dad too. I wanted to tell him, to spill everything, but fear stopped me. What if he didn't believe me either? Mom's calls grew rare, her voice distant when we spoke. She never asked why I left, never mentioned Greg. I'd hear his laugh in the background, and my stomach would twist. Once, she said, "You could come back," but I heard Greg's voice, and I hung up. Her betrayal stung worse than his fists. She'd chosen him, her happiness, over me. I'd lie in bed, clutching Dad's old sweatshirt, wondering if I'd ever feel safe again. The knife was gone, but I still checked under my pillow, a habit I couldn't break. I was 14, but felt older, carrying a pain no kid should know. I vowed to keep silent, to protect what little I had left, even if it meant losing myself. Mom's face that night, disappointed, not worried, haunts me. She saw me trembling on the floor, but chose Greg's lies over my pain. That moment broke us, a crack too deep to mend. I'd spent years begging her to see him, to notice my fear, but she was lost in his charm, her love for him blinding her. I'd catch glimpses of the old mom, her laugh when we'd bake, her soft hugs, but they were ghosts, drowned by Greg's shadow. Her refusal to question him, to believe me, felt like she'd chosen a stranger over her own kid. I stopped calling her mom in my head, just her, a woman I didn't know anymore. I tried writing her a letter once, pouring out the truth, Greg's slaps, the knife, Muffin's death. But I tore it up, knowing she'd dismiss it as a tantrum. Her happiness with him was a wall I couldn't breach. I'd see her in my dreams, braiding my hair, but wake up to silence. Dad's house was my refuge, but the pain of losing her lingered, a wound that wouldn't heal. I wondered if she ever thought of me, or if Greg had erased me from her heart. The bond we'd had, once my everything, was gone, leaving a hole I didn't know how to fill. At Dad's, I started to breathe again, but the scars remained. I was 14, trying to be a kid, but Greg's cruelty and Mom's betrayal weighed on me. I'd sit on Dad's porch, watching the sunset, wondering if I'd ever trust again. School was a battle, but I pushed through, joining band again, letting music drown the memories. Dad never pressed, just left me space, his quiet presence a lifeline. I didn't tell him about Greg, scared it'd break him too. But his small gestures, burnt pancakes, bad jokes, reminded me I was safe. Mom faded from my life, her calls stopping. I heard she and Greg were still together, and it stung, but I let her go. I wasn't the kid who'd gossiped with her anymore. I was stronger, shaped by pain but not defined by it. I'd think of Muffin, her soft purrs, and cry, but I vowed to keep going. Dad's house became home, a place to heal, even if slowly. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I'd survive. Some wounds don't close, but they teach you to stand. I was standing, one step at a time, carrying a past I'd never forget but wouldn't let own me.